All right, I want you to think about an everyday, totally ubiquitous product that you probably drive past in almost every major road in America. It's quietly holding a multi-billion-dollar secret: self-storage. Most of us just cruise right past them, right? We just assume it's a simple, maybe even kind of boring real estate play. But, well, beneath those roll-up metal doors is a remarkably fine-tuned machine built entirely on fascinating human psychology.
Picture this perfectly relatable scenario. You're moving. Maybe your apartment is just a bit too small, or your garage is bursting at the seams, so you search for a storage unit. You find one for, let's say, $89 a month. You think, hey, that's not too bad at all. You move in some boxes, an old couch, maybe a TV you haven't even plugged in for 2 years. And then something really strange happens. 3 months go by, then 6, then a year. Eventually, the stuff inside that $89 box might literally be worth way less than the money you've actually spent storing it. But you just keep paying. Why do we do this?
Well, the secret relies on what we can call a core inversion of the entire industry. You see, the storage company isn't actually selling you a room. You aren't just buying square footage. What you are really buying is time. Specifically, you're buying permission not to make a decision about your belongings. And the longer you postpone that decision, whether to keep, sell, or throw away that old couch, the longer that meter keeps running.
And let me tell you, that tiny little psychological quirk, it adds up incredibly fast. Let's look at the sheer scale of this phenomenon. The U.S. self-storage industry now generates more than $61 billion in revenue, according to the Self-Storage Association. $61 billion, that's with a B. It is an absolute behemoth of an industry, and it's built almost entirely on our collective reluctance to just part with our stuff.
To capture all that massive demand, there are currently more than 64,000 self-storage facilities operating nationwide. And think about this. These aren't complex manufacturing plants. They don't cook food, and they definitely don't have to restock shelves. They simply own or lease a building full of small, empty spaces and rent those spaces out to thousands of customers. That is the machine at its absolute most basic level.
Now, storage isn't just one monolithic thing. If we break down the taxonomy of the industry, you've got your traditional drive-up units where you literally pull your car right up to the door. You have indoor climate-controlled units that charge a nice premium for temperature and security. You've got vehicle storage for things like RVs and boats. But the really crucial point here is that bottom one: remote managed facilities. This is a game changer. This is where you reserve your unit online, get a digital code, unlock your unit, and you literally never actually meet an employee. This shifts the economics drastically because one employee, or sometimes 0 on-site employees, can effectively manage hundreds or even thousands of units.
This whole variety of options perfectly accommodates the typical customer journey. It usually starts with the temporary renter. Maybe you just need a unit for 3 months while transitioning between apartments. No big deal. Next is the life event renter. This is someone dealing with things like a divorce, a passing in the family, relocation, or a job transfer. But step 3? Oh, that is the customer every single storage operator dreams about. The permanent renter. That's the person who moves their things in, sets up autopay, and just never really moves out.
And this brilliantly illustrates this central mathematical problem that operators face, which is vacancy. If a 1,000-unit facility has 100 empty units, well, that produces 0 rent. So operators treat this a lot like airlines do with their seats, using yield management to maximize revenue for every single available fixed space. But there is one massive, absolutely massive difference. An airline seat expires the very moment that plane takes off. A storage unit doesn't. Once that building exists, the inventory never expires, which gives the operator an incredible ongoing advantage. Of course, getting to that point of profitability isn't exactly a walk in the park. Let's talk about the massive entry barrier for new owners. If an investor wants to build a facility with, say, 60,000 rentable square feet, they are instantly hit with this huge balancing act: cheap land versus expensive demand. If you build way too far outside a city, sure, the land is wonderfully cheap, but the demand is going to be terrible. If you build close to a major city, the demand is phenomenal, but that land can become extraordinarily expensive. So operators literally have to obsess over things like population growth and traffic patterns because they are essentially placing a massive bet on how much stuff a local population is going to accumulate over time.
But the absolute magic of this model reveals itself in how the money flows once those doors actually open. Just compare a typical supermarket to a storage facility. A supermarket constantly has to restock expiring inventory, right? But in storage, the customer brings the inventory. Your old bicycle doesn't need to be reordered when someone else moves out. You, the customer, do all the heavy lifting. You pack, you load, you unload, and you organize. The company mainly just provides the container and the infrastructure, and every single month that rent comes due.
And we, the consumers, are actively participating in this model in just staggering numbers. According to the SSA's 2025 demand study, almost 16.68 million U.S. households rented a self-storage unit in 2024. Think about that. That represents 12.6% of all households. This is no longer some niche behavior reserved for people who are just in between homes. Relying on an external box to hold our overflow is now a thoroughly mainstream consumer habit.
So, the truly crucial point here is what we can call the boxes versus bedrooms effect. Think about how real estate normally works. A 150-square-foot bedroom requires highly complex infrastructure. We're talking kitchens, bathrooms, plumbing, and heating just to support human life. But a 100-square-foot storage box? You are monetizing basic space that does not need to support human life. It's wild. If you buy morning coffee for $4.75, you consume it, and it's gone. In storage, the box doesn't get consumed. The exact same physical space simply keeps producing rent month after month after month. Now, before we crown this the perfect risk-free business, let's look at the hidden costs, because this certainly isn't just free money. Operators constantly battle over supply. If too many developers build nearby, everyone is fighting for the exact same customers, which forces massive discounts. They're also totally at the mercy of real estate financing and interest rates. Strict local zoning regulations that dictate if you can even build in the first place, and the most basic risk of all, customer churn. The reality is, at the end of the day, customers can easily just pack up their stuff and leave.
And this localized risk is really clearly reflected in U.S. physical occupancy rates. During the pandemic peak, occupancy hit an astonishing 93.9%. But by the fourth quarter of 2025, TrackTQ reported that national averages had dropped significantly to 84.4%. This just proves that averages can be highly misleading. Storage is intensely localized. A facility in a booming, growing neighborhood might be completely full, while one just a few towns over might be really struggling with empty units.
And because customers can leave so easily, operators use heavy promotions to get them in the door. You know, the ones like offering the first 3 months at a deep discount. But this creates a huge gap between the advertised price and the effective rent. If you discount too aggressively just to fill a building, you aren't maximizing your revenue at all. That's exactly why the true metric of success in this industry isn't the sticker price, it's the effective rent. That's what you actually collect into your bank account after all those promotions shake out. And what dictates that effective rent more than absolutely anything else? Proximity. Cushman & Wakefield reported the average U.S. asking rent hovered right around $128 a unit. But remember, this is a hyper-local business. Customers usually will not drive 40 minutes just to retrieve their Christmas decorations, right? They want the facility that's 5 or 10 minutes down the road. So the value of the box depends almost entirely on the surrounding land. When developers build, they aren't just building metal units. They are literally buying access to future local demand. Let's break down the stunning mathematics of this space with a really simplified hypothetical example. Imagine a 1,000-unit facility sitting at 88% occupancy, with an average effective rent of around $112 a month. Annually, that generates over $1.18 million in gross rent. Add in $72,000 from ancillary things, like tenant protection products and late fees. Now subtract your operating expenses. Say they consume about 36.5% of your revenue. That leaves you with nearly $800,000 in net operating income before debt and taxes. That is high, relatively stable recurring revenue sitting on an asset that doesn't need to constantly manufacture or place its inventory. Which brings us right back to the beginning, and honestly, to you, the consumer. If you have a storage unit, or if you're ever thinking about getting one, you really have to ask yourself this question. Are you really renting a room, or are you just buying time? Time to decide what to do with that old furniture. Time to avoid sorting through those untouched boxes. Remember, every single month you delay that decision, that same 100 square feet gets another chance to produce revenue for someone else. So as you evaluate your own possessions, keep this insight in mind. Self-storage isn't really a business that rents space. It's a business that monetizes the gap between what people own and what they're willing to let go of. It is a profound psychological insight into modern consumerism, hiding right there in plain sight inside a simple metal box. So, what's sitting in your storage unit right now? And how much is it really costing you not to decide?